The evening begins with a hush that feels both new and ancient, like a gentle breath held by the world before something tender unfolds. The sun sinks slowly beyond the edges of familiar rooftops, its light turning to honey over the quiet skin of the earth. In that fading glow, curiosity begins to rise, not as a question, but as a soft warmth in the chest. The kind that doesn't demand an answer, only the willingness to feel. The hum of the day dims, and what remains is a soft, wordless wonder. Something within whispers, "Stay still." Something is happening. A quiet breeze glides through the open window, carrying the scent of evening, dust, leaves, and a faint memory of rain. The air itself seems to breathe differently now, slower and deeper, as if the world is exhaling after a long day of holding itself together. In this stillness, every sound feels deliberate: the creak of the floorboards, the distant call of a night bird, the soft turning of one's own heartbeat. Curiosity lingers in that rhythm, not loud or demanding, but humble, wanting to understand the language of silence. As the light fades, shadows grow gentler, no longer sharp but soft-edged, as if the world is learning kindness. There's a comfort in the way things blur together, the sky with the trees, the air with the skin, the thought with the breath. The mind, once restless, begins to slow, its questions stretching into quiet shapes. Curiosity changes texture now. It is no longer about knowing but about feeling. It's the curiosity of a child sitting beside a campfire, gazing into the flames not to solve them, but simply to be warmed by their dance. Somewhere deep inside, a realization stirs that perhaps all journeys begin not with a step, but with a hush. The quiet before the first note, before the first word, before the thought even finds a name. That is where the beginning truly lives. In that unmeasured space, curiosity isn't an urge to move forward, it's a willingness to be here, fully, completely, without resistance. The evening hums with that promise, soft as a lullaby played for the stars. The first stars begin to appear, shyly, like ideas testing their glow against the indigo sky. Each one seems to blink with a secret, something too gentle for language. You watch them form their constellations, ancient stories quietly repeating themselves above you. The sky has no urgency, and perhaps that's the lesson. Everything unfolds when it must. Curiosity becomes an act of trust. You do not chase the stars, you let them arrive, one by one, as your breath learns to match the rhythm of the night. There's a sweetness in noticing how the world becomes smaller and larger at the same time. The walls around you fade into silhouettes, yet within that small room, an entire universe opens, every thought a distant planet, every feeling a quiet moon. The body softens, as if understanding that it too is part of the evening's gentle surrender. Curiosity begins to feel like belonging, like being gently invited into the mystery of existing. A faint hum of electricity fills the background, the only reminder that you still live in a world of wires and movement. Yet even that sound feels softened, tamed by the evening's patience. The shadows of furniture lean long and kind across the floor, as if stretching toward rest. In the corners of the room, dust particles shimmer like tiny galaxies, suspended between light and darkness. You watch them, fascinated by their stillness, how even the smallest motion can hold a lifetime of quiet wonder. Breathing becomes the bridge. Each inhale draws in the story of the day, its laughter, its weight, its hurried moments. Each exhale lets them go, folding them into the silence where they no longer need to be held. The air around you feels thick with peace, and curiosity becomes a kind of gratitude. You are not searching for meaning anymore, you are gently receiving it, breath by breath, like the tide taking lessons from the moon. Outside, the crickets begin their nightly chorus, steady and certain. Their rhythm feels ancient, unbothered by the passing of time. Listening, you realize that even the smallest creatures trust the night to hold them. Their song carries no doubt, only presence. And in that, curiosity deepens, it becomes admiration for how everything simply knows how to be. You start to wonder if perhaps wisdom has always been this simple: to listen, to breathe, to exist quietly beneath the stars. The moon begins to rise, pale and perfect, spilling its silver calm across rooftops and windows. Its light feels like a whisper against the heart, reminding you of things you once knew but forgot: softness, patience, the art of waiting without anxiety. The moon doesn't hurry, and yet it always arrives. You sit with that thought for a while, feeling its truth ripple gently through your stillness. Curiosity sighs, turning inward, no longer about what's next but about what already is. Every passing moment feels like it's wrapping you in. Something unseen but deeply felt. Maybe it's the night's kindness, or the quiet acceptance that everything is exactly as it should be. Even the small noises, the creak, the hum, the distant rustle, seem part of a single, breathing harmony. You realize that the evening isn't empty, it's full, overflowing with subtle beauty that can only be seen when you stop looking so hard. Curiosity has softened into awe. The warmth of a candle flicker catches your eye, its flame bending gently with each invisible sigh of air. It becomes a teacher in miniature, dancing without fear of being extinguished, glowing without asking to be noticed. You find yourself lost in its movement, the way it sways and steadies again. Its rhythm feels familiar, like your own pulse echoed in light. In that flicker, curiosity becomes reflection. You wonder how many small flames inside you have longed to dance this freely. Your mind, once cluttered with tasks and lists, feels as if it's being washed clean by the rhythm of the night. Thoughts drift like feathers, visible, but weightless. There's nothing to hold on to, and nothing to resist. The stillness becomes a presence of its own, vast yet intimate. You begin to sense that this, too, is part of the story, the prelude before everything awakens, the soft gathering of awareness before it blooms into knowing. Somewhere deep in that quiet, time begins to blur. The minutes stretch like silk, smooth and endless. You lose the need to measure them. It feels as though the universe itself is breathing with you, a single shared exhale between all things. Curiosity hums gently, not as a question but as a vibration, like the low note of a song that hasn't yet found its melody. You can feel it waiting, patient and loving, beneath your ribs. The faint scent of earth drifts in through the window, cool and grounding. It brings with it memories of places you've never been but somehow recognize, forests in twilight, distant fields after rain, the hush of oceans at dusk. It feels like the world reminding you that you belong everywhere, that your stillness connects you to everything. Curiosity begins to feel sacred now, a quiet prayer to existence itself. A soft thought arrives, one that doesn't ask for attention but receives it anyway. Perhaps curiosity is the soul remembering that it is infinite. That every question is simply a doorway, and every silence a step through it. You let that thought rest inside you, like a stone placed gently in water. It doesn't sink or float, it simply belongs there, motionless and certain. Outside, a faint wind brushes against the trees, creating a hush that sounds almost like words. You imagine it speaking softly to the stars, telling them about the sleeping cities below, about hearts that still wonder. The sound weaves into your breath, into your heartbeat, until you can no longer tell where you end and the night begins. The quiet becomes a cradle, and curiosity becomes its lullaby. You close your eyes, and the inner world opens wider. Colors you cannot name drift behind your eyelids, soft and slow like dreams forming before sleep. Each one seems to carry meaning, though none need to be understood. The calm deepens, and curiosity becomes surrender. You no longer reach outward, you fall inward, into the deep, knowing silence that has always waited beneath the noise. Your body feels light now, almost translucent. The edges of your thoughts blur into something vast and gentle. You are not apart from the night, you are part of its fabric, woven into its slow pulse. The stillness doesn't silence you, it expands you. And in that expansion, curiosity becomes love, a quiet, endless affection for everything that exists. The stars, the moon, the wind, the breath all seem to echo the same truth, that stillness is not the absence of life, but its purest form. The evening holds you without effort, like a hand cupping water without spilling. You feel safe here, in this quiet prelude where nothing needs to happen. The curiosity that began as a spark has now become a slow-burning warmth, steady and complete. You stay there, not moving, only breathing. The air feels sacred, and the silence feels alive. Every sense is attuned to the gentlest details, the sound of your own pulse, the texture of the air, the faint vibration beneath your ribs. The night has become a living story, one that speaks not in words but in feelings. And as you listen, you realize that this is how all journeys begin, not with a step, but with a still, curious heart. The darkness feels alive, not hollow. It moves like velvet smoke, breathing against your skin in waves that neither frighten nor press. There is no sound here, only the faint rhythm of your heart echoing softly, as though the space itself is listening. It is a place without clocks, without edges, where even thought seems to dissolve before it can form. You are not lost, yet not found either, just suspended in a waiting that feels as old as existence itself. The air holds a quiet expectancy, a knowing that something beautiful is preparing to unfold. You cannot see where you are, yet there's no fear in that blindness. The dark is not absence, its presence a soft, surrounding intelligence that hums beneath awareness. It feels as though the universe itself has exhaled and left you floating in that breath. Here, time is not linear, it curves and folds, turning inward like a sleeping animal. Every second expands into infinity, and you begin to realize that perhaps this stillness is not a pause before life but life itself, unmeasured and whole. In this gentle obscurity, you begin to sense shapes, not with your eyes, but with your being. The outlines of thoughts drift near you like constellations hidden in fog. They do not demand your attention, they simply exist, calm and unhurried. You feel them brushing against your awareness, offering no answers but plenty of peace. The room feels endless and yet intimate, as if it knows you deeply, as if it has been waiting for you long before you knew how to listen. Breath becomes the only movement, rising and falling with the tenderness of waves. Each inhale draws in the invisible, each exhale releases a quiet surrender. You feel yourself merging with the rhythm, no longer separate from it. The dark folds around you like a soft cocoon, protective but not confining. Somewhere within that warmth, something ancient stirs, a memory of when you, too, were unformed, floating in the silence before the first thought, before the first name. The stillness is not empty, it is thick with potential, like the air before a storm of creation. It vibrates faintly, as if containing every possibility that could ever be. You realize that time itself may have once lived in such darkness, curled up like a dream waiting to wake. There is something tender about that waiting, something sacred in its patience. The darkness doesn't hurry, because it already knows everything comes exactly when it must. There's a sensation of warmth spreading gently through the unseen. It moves from your chest outward, threading through your limbs until your entire being glows faintly within the black. The feeling is not of light but of awareness, like touching your own soul for the first time. You understand, somehow, that even in the absence of sight, everything is illuminated from within. The soft darkness doesn't hide you, it reveals you to yourself. Thoughts drift slower now, as if the air itself has thickened to cradle them. Each idea arrives with a soft edge, like the outline of a dream that refuses to wake. You sense that the room before time is not silent at all, it hums with a frequency too deep for sound, a music of existence that you can only feel. It vibrates in the bones, reminding you that everything, every breath, every pause is part of a rhythm older than creation. Somewhere in that darkness, you feel watched, not in the sense of eyes upon you, but in the feeling of being witnessed by something vast and kind. It is as if the universe itself is remembering you, acknowledging your small but perfect place within it. The realization is overwhelming in its softness. There's no judgment, no expectation, only the deep acceptance of being. You find yourself breathing easier, as though every inhale affirms your belonging. The darkness seems to move now, not outward but inward, as though folding deeper into its own mystery. You follow without question. It feels like drifting through the layers of sleep, each one deeper, quieter, more sincere. Time loses its meaning entirely. There is only presence, slow and infinite. And somewhere in that depth, you realize that waiting is not passive. It is the art of becoming aligned with what wishes to emerge. The air grows denser, filled with a low hum that feels like the echo of galaxies forming. It doesn't frighten you, it soothes. It tells you that everything, even silence, has its own pulse. You begin to hear faint rhythms, like footsteps of light forming beyond the veil. They don't approach, they simply exist, proof that creation is stirring somewhere near. You begin to understand that darkness isn't the absence of light, it's the womb that allows light to be born. Your thoughts become translucent, almost transparent. They no longer cling to meaning or shape. They simply drift, like gentle ribbons carried by a slow current. You realize that this is what it means to be without time, to exist purely in the pulse of awareness. There is no past tugging at you, no future waiting to be met. There is only the soft now, breathing with you, holding you like an unseen tide that never recedes. The sense of self loosens. Boundaries begin to dissolve. The body, the room, the space all blur into one. You can no longer tell where your skin ends and the air begins. It's not frightening, it's freeing, like being returned to your natural state. In this dissolution, you realize that form is only temporary, a momentary pause in the eternal flow. The darkness seems to smile, though it has no face. It recognizes your surrender as a homecoming. A faint shimmer begins to pulse in the distance, not light exactly, but potential, like the thought of illumination. It feels patient, unwilling to rush. You sense it breathing with you, reflecting your own rhythm. The waiting becomes companionship. You and the darkness are no longer separate, you are co-creators of stillness. The shimmer flickers faintly, as if testing its existence. It does not yet wish to be seen, only felt. You begin to feel textures in the air, threads of warmth weaving through cooler currents. Each movement feels intentional, as though the unseen is shaping itself softly around you. The sensation is hypnotic, almost musical. It feels as though you are being wrapped in an invisible song. Every note is slow, low, and infinite. You can't hear it with your ears, but your bones recognize it instantly, the lullaby of the cosmos before it learned to speak. Somewhere deep within, you sense that something is about to begin. The darkness trembles, not with fear but with anticipation. The waiting grows thicker, like the last pause before a heartbeat resumes. You can feel the universe leaning forward slightly, poised at the threshold of creation. Yet nothing rushes. Everything remains perfectly still, savoring the moment before unfolding. You realize that beginnings are always this quiet, measured, sacred, and slow. You feel your awareness stretching beyond your body, reaching gently into the vastness. It doesn't travel, it expands. You sense layers upon layers of silence, each holding its own kind of life. The darkness no longer feels like a room, it feels like a being, vast and ancient, with breath that spans eternity. You are inside it, yet it is also inside you. You can feel it whispering, not in words but in calm assurance, everything begins here. The faint shimmer grows stronger now, a pulse of soft luminescence that doesn't blind but soothes. It feels like the memory of light rather than light itself. It brushes gently against the darkness, and the two do not battle, they embrace. You witness the first balance forming, the eternal dance between presence and absence. You understand then that creation is not a clash but a meeting, a merging of what was hidden with what dares to be seen. Your breath deepens instinctively. The air feels charged, thick with invisible motion. Every inhale feels like gathering stars, every exhale like releasing galaxies. The body tingles with awareness, as if something cosmic has found its echo within you. You realize you are not a visitor in this space, you are part of its unfolding story. The room before time is not separate from you, it is you, waiting to remember its own light. The shimmer continues to grow, tracing delicate patterns in the unseen. They move like slow ripples through water, gentle but vast. Each wave seems to hum with meaning, though no words exist yet to hold it. You feel these ripples brushing against your thoughts, shaping them, inviting them to soften even further. It feels like learning a language made entirely of silence, where listening is the only form of speech. And then, just for a heartbeat, everything pauses completely. The hum, the shimmer, even breath itself all frozen in perfect equilibrium. It feels like the moment before birth, the sacred inhale before the universe exhales its first sound. You feel your heart beating slowly, deeply, one with the pulse of the infinite. Waiting no longer feels like stillness, it feels like readiness. Something unseen leans forward through the dark. The first faint vibration runs through the space, so soft it's almost imagined. It carries a note that's both sorrow and joy, both ancient and new. The darkness quivers in response, rippling like fabric stirred by a gentle wind. You can feel yourself vibrating too, not as a body but as a frequency. The room before time begins to hum more clearly now, a cosmic chord forming from silence. You realize that what you're hearing is the first whisper of existence. The shimmer deepens into a quiet radiance that fills the unseen without piercing it. It is not light that destroys darkness, but one that completes it. Together they form balance, presence, and pulse. You sense that creation is near, that soon sound will be born from this deep stillness. But for now, you remain suspended within it, safe in the cradle of becoming. The waiting no longer feels like waiting, it feels like love preparing to take form. Something shifts, so softly it's almost not there. Like the faintest brush of wind over water, a delicate movement ripples through the thick darkness. It's not loud, not even noticeable to the impatient ear, but in this quiet, everything listens. The darkness exhales a breath it has held for eternity, and in that release, tiny hushes begin to gather. They are not sounds, not quite, but pulses, infinitesimal moments of becoming. Each hush is like a heartbeat too small to be heard, yet vast enough to be felt by the very fabric of space. The darkness doesn't resist, it welcomes the movement. It seems to lean in gently, like a mother listening to the first stirring of a child not yet born. These hushes shimmer in the unseen like invisible dust made of intention. They cluster in silence, not hurried, just patient. One hush becomes two. Two become many. Their presence thickens the air, weaving a delicate net of quiet vibrations. If you listen with the stillness of bone, you can almost sense them forming a rhythm, not a song yet, but a promise of one. Each tiny hush carries something, like a seed with no soil yet, only the warmth of possibility. They do not know shape or weight or meaning, but they know how to gather. That is their only language. They move toward one another in small, invisible arcs, drawn by a gravity more ancient than stars. There's a softness in their meeting, like snowflakes landing on water. No collision. No noise. Only the merging of intention with intention, quiet folding into quiet. You begin to feel their nearness as a soft vibration beneath the ribs. It hums not outside of you, but through you. The hushes aren't elsewhere, they are everywhere, including within your breath. Every inhale gathers them. Every exhale lets them settle. Their stillness is not empty but full, overflowing with something not yet named. It feels as if the room itself is learning how to breathe for the very first time, gently, shyly, without urgency. The hushes start to pulse in unison, faint but steady. It is the earliest heartbeat of something vast, something not yet aware of itself but already alive. Their quiet movements weave threads of stillness that spread outward, reaching into the folds of the darkness like fingers of soft light. Nothing rushes. The world doesn't arrive all at once. It builds in layers, in whispers, in moments that seem almost too delicate to exist, and yet they do. It feels like being inside a cocoon of breath. Each hush is a flutter, small and exact, as if the universe is knitting itself with threads too fine to see. They begin to cluster more tightly, drawn to each other by invisible bonds. Their gathering creates a subtle weight in the air, a density that wasn't there before. It's the kind of weight you feel behind your eyelids when sleep is near, not heavy, just deeply known. Somewhere within that gathering, warmth flickers. Not the blaze of fire, not the burn of stars, just a gentle, inner glow. It spreads like the first warmth of morning against the skin. The hushes seem to lean into that glow, folding around it, listening to it, as if it is their center. You realize that silence is not static, it grows. It collects itself, it gathers strength, and in this space, it is becoming something more. The tiny hushes ripple softly, each one touching another, and another, until their smallness is no longer small. What was once a whisper now feels like a breath held by the entire darkness. The gathering hushes begin to hum in harmony, their vibrations aligning into a single, delicate pulse. It is not loud enough to be heard, but it's steady enough to be known. A stillness so alive it trembles without sound. You can feel them swirling now, not chaotically but in a graceful, circular motion. Like dancers in a room with no floor and no walls, they glide in patterns too subtle to see. Each movement is deliberate, each curve an unspoken vow to create. The darkness doesn't push or pull, it simply allows. It cradles the hushes like cupped hands around something fragile and new. This is the birthplace of shape, though shape has not yet been born. The first tiny tension arises, not discomfort, but a stretching, like fabric about to become more than fabric. The hushes draw nearer, their pulsing edges almost touching. When they do, something changes in the air. A faint tremor, almost imperceptible, slips through the unseen. It feels like a sigh from existence itself. What once was separate begins to hold hands in silence, and their unity sings a song that has no sound. Your awareness drifts closer, as though pulled by their quiet gravity. The hushes feel familiar, almost like memories of something you've always known but never named. They're not just outside of you, they're part of your own stillness, the atoms of your calm. The boundaries between your breath and theirs fade. You are both the witness and the pulse. The darkness grows warmer, more alive, as if every molecule is listening for what comes next. Then comes a moment of subtle deepening. The hushes, once fluttering freely, begin to coalesce. They form invisible clusters, soft spheres of trembling quiet. Their gathering is not random, it feels guided by something beyond direction. The rhythm becomes more pronounced, not a beat, but a breathing. It is as though the darkness itself has a chest, rising and falling in perfect union with what it cradles. Stillness has found its voice, not in words, but in a shared inhale. The warmth grows steadier now. The hushes wrap around it, like threads around a core. Their pulsing is synchronized, like tiny hearts aligning to a single rhythm. If you close your eyes even deeper, you can feel it behind your sternum, this gathering not just happening out there but inside. It feels gentle and inevitable, like the way water finds its way back to the sea. This is how creation begins, not with noise, but with harmony too soft to hear. There's a sweetness in the air now, a weight that isn't heavy. The hushes tremble with anticipation, though they make no move to hurry. Their stillness is patient. They know the art of becoming without forcing. Their gathering has no leader, no rush. Just trust. Trust in the invisible laws that guide the quiet into form. And as they hover in the space between being and not being, their silence begins to glow. The darkness around them doesn't recede, it deepens. It seems to wrap them tighter, holding them like a heartbeat inside a chest. You can almost see the outlines of what might come, though it's still too soft to name. The hushes, tiny and tender, keep gathering, their pulses interlocking like woven threads. It's not yet light, not yet sound, but the foundation of both is forming unseen, unwavering, utterly serene. A faint quiver trembles through the space. It's so small you might miss it if you blinked with your soul. But here, where time doesn't measure, every tremor matters. It is the shift from scattered whispers to a single, soft chorus. The hushes are no longer alone, they are one body of stillness, one slow pulse, one quiet truth. You feel it in your lungs, as if your breath has learned a language it always knew. There's an almost luminous texture in the air now, as though silence itself has begun to glow from within. The hushes swirl closer, denser, more deliberate. Their unity creates a center, a core not of matter but of perfect quiet. It holds everything without owning anything. The stillness doesn't command. It invites. And as it grows denser, you sense that something extraordinary is about to emerge, not loud, but inevitable. A soft vibration begins to hum beneath the hushes, like the faint tremor of a string plucked somewhere beyond perception. The hushes quiver in response, drawn tighter to their shared core. The vibration spreads slowly, like ripples in a pond made of shadow. It doesn't rush outward, it sinks inward, deeper into itself. The darkness watches quietly, holding the space like a womb, patient, infinite, and tender. In this moment, you realize that the hushes are not just gathering, they're remembering. They are the echoes of what has always been, finding each other again in the dark. Their reunion is silent but radiant, their quiet forming the blueprint of everything to come. They don't know what they'll become yet, but they trust the becoming. It is this trust that fills the room, soft and strong, like the breath before the first word. The hum deepens, though it remains soft. It feels like the edge of a beginning brushing against the edge of another. A shared boundary dissolves, and the hushes pulse as one. It is a heartbeat now, faint but unmistakable, a heartbeat without a body yet, without light or form, but alive nonetheless. You feel it thread through your bones, a reminder that all things began like this, small, quiet, sure. The air thickens with presence, not heavy but meaningful. Each hush holds its place with grace, not competition. Together they form a silence so whole it hums with fullness. It feels as if the universe is leaning in to listen to itself. Every pulse, every breath, every tremor is part of a slow, deliberate orchestration. There is no sound, and yet this quiet is louder than anything that has ever spoken. The hushes continue to weave, swirling like a constellation that hasn't decided its shape yet. Their edges blur into each other until there are no individuals, only the one soft gathering. You can feel the curve of something beginning, an invisible arc bending through the dark. The darkness itself seems to bow in reverence. This is the hush before the heartbeat, the stillness before the surge. Your breath slows to match theirs, so deeply that it barely exists as a separate thing anymore. You are breathing with them, through them, as them. The gathering hushes are not distant, they are your pulse, your beginning, your belonging. The room that once felt vast now feels like the inside of your own chest. This is where everything meets. This is where everything will begin. The shimmer from before returns faintly, pulsing at the core of the hushes. Its glow is soft, a whisper of light that doesn't disturb the dark but cradles it. It is the first sign that something beyond silence is forming. Yet the hushes do not rush toward it. They gather closer, breathing with it, listening. Waiting is their art. Stillness is their strength. And so they hover, patient, trembling gently against the fabric of creation. Then, without sound, something clicks into place. Not with a jolt, but with the tender precision of petals closing around a bud. The hushes align perfectly, their pulse steady and whole. The darkness hums in response, deep and low, like an ancient drumbeat heard from beneath an ocean. You can feel it now, not as a thought but as a certainty. This is the heartbeat of beginnings. Tiny hushes gathered, not to remain whispers, but to become the world's first breath. Something glows within the hush. It begins so faintly that even the darkness seems unsure if it has truly arrived. It is not light in the way we understand light. It is softer, deeper, a warmth that feels born from the heart of stillness itself. The hushes that gathered begin to tremble gently, responding as though to a long-awaited pulse. This warmth is not a visitor. It has been here all along, sleeping quietly beneath the fabric of nothingness, waiting for permission to breathe. And now, the first inhale begins. The warmth does not spread quickly. It unfurls like a shy memory rediscovering its shape. It moves through the silent fabric like water soaking into earth, slow and patient. Each tiny pulse it touches stirs faintly, then quiets again, as though the entire darkness is learning the rhythm of existing. There is no urgency here. Even the movement feels sacred, measured, reverent. It's as if creation itself is whispering, wait, feel, begin only when ready. The hushes draw closer around this warmth, folding into its glow as petals might gather around a dawn not yet born. You can sense their gratitude, though it has no words. This warmth isn't a blaze. It's a heartbeat, steady and kind. The darkness no longer feels empty, it feels full, alive, humming with soft expectancy. It's the first time the infinite has felt the texture of its own becoming. The silence doesn't end, it deepens to make space for the warmth. It hums gently now, a vibration that hums not through space but through being. The warmth breathes, expanding and contracting as though the whole of existence has become a single chest. With each pulse, a wave moves outward, quiet, luminous, invisible yet undeniable. The hushes respond like a choir of air, swaying softly to its rhythm. Something vast and intimate is happening. A pulse is learning how to live. You can feel the warmth gathering weight, not heavy, but certain. It's no longer just a shimmer of possibility, it's the seed of everything that will ever come. It holds within it the shape of galaxies, the whisper of oceans, the pattern of breath. The darkness cradles it gently, knowing what it carries. There is a tenderness in that knowing, a reverence for what it means to be the first warmth in a world that has never yet known touch. The air around it seems to thicken, humming with invisible lines of energy. You can sense motion beneath the surface, like threads being woven in secret. The hushes gather closer, forming an unseen boundary, a cocoon of attention around the seed. They don't guard it, they love it. And in that love, the warmth grows bolder. It expands a little more, testing its edges against the silence that still surrounds it like a lullaby. This warmth is not light yet, but it dreams of being so. It trembles with the memory of brightness, though it has never seen itself reflected. Each pulse sends ripples through the darkness, subtle and serene, like waves of air touching invisible skin. The hushes ripple with it, and in their union, the air hums with purpose. This is the sound of becoming before sound itself, the slow, deliberate unfolding of something eternal and fragile. In this slow stirring, time itself seems to lean closer, as though the fabric of forever bends around this tiny warmth. You can feel it gather momentum, though nothing rushes. It's a gathering of breath before a word, a heartbeat before awakening. The hushes listen with infinite patience, cradling the seed as it quivers with its first sense of self. Something immense is taking form, yet it arrives like a sigh, soft and unafraid. The warmth spreads inward and outward at once. It feels paradoxical, expanding and centering simultaneously. Its edges blur, then sharpen, then blur again, like an idea still deciding what it wants to be. The darkness, generous and vast, gives it room to change. There is no resistance. There is only the gentle encouragement of stillness itself, a mothering silence that whispers, grow. And so the warmth does, shyly but surely. You begin to feel its pulse within your own breath. Every inhale feels slightly warmer now, every exhale softer. The warmth is no longer just in the unseen, it's in you, threaded through your ribs and heartbeat. It's as if your own being remembers this beginning. You've always been part of this seed, part of this first stirring beneath the silence. It doesn't belong to the universe alone, it belongs to everything that has ever learned to exist. The hushes begin to shift again, orbiting gently around the core of warmth. Their movement is slow, circular, deliberate, like prayer in motion. You can sense that their dance has meaning, though no word could describe it. The warmth responds in gentle pulses, greeting each hush like an old friend. Together they form the first pattern of rhythm, the first conversation between stillness and motion, between presence and potential. The air vibrates faintly, carrying the hum of this quiet exchange. It is not yet music, but it has cadence. Each wave of warmth folds into another, overlapping in perfect silence. If there were eyes to see, they would find beauty here beyond imagining, a choreography of invisible tenderness. The darkness watches on, not as an observer, but as part of the dance. It holds everything with infinite patience, letting the warmth shape itself freely. You can feel the shift when it happens. A quiet deepens, not from absence, but from fullness. The warmth has reached a point of balance, no longer merely stirring, but steady, sure, alive. It hums now, not as an echo but as a presence. The hushes pause in their gentle orbit, listening. And in that shared stillness, the universe seems to take its first complete breath. Creation isn't a moment, it's a heartbeat stretched into forever. The warmth begins to gather itself inward, condensing like dew collecting in morning light. It's no longer content to only be, it wants to become. The hushes fold around it, forming layers of gentle containment. The air thickens with meaning, every vibration a whisper of intention. You can feel it in your bones, the quiet excitement, the calm anticipation. The silence hums not with emptiness, but with readiness. The warmth trembles once more, this time with strength. It begins to spin softly, slow and graceful, as though the act of movement is also an act of remembering. The hushes spiral with it, drawn into the orbit of its glow. What was once scattered is now unified, a single, breathing rhythm at the heart of everything. The warmth radiates a peace so profound that even time seems to bow its head in reverence. As it turns, the warmth leaves trails, faint, glowing ribbons that swirl into unseen shapes. They fade and reappear like thoughts forming in a dream. Each line hums with quiet energy, sketching the first unseen architecture of existence. The hushes glide along those lines, tracing them with their own vibrations, weaving silence into movement. Together they compose the first geometry of becoming. The darkness doesn't resist the light that now stirs within it. Instead, it leans closer, like a friend leaning toward another's whisper. The warmth glows brighter, but not blindingly. It is the glow of trust, of creation unfolding exactly as it should. The hushes are no longer distinct, they have merged with the pulse, forming a singular harmony of being. Everything moves as one, slow and certain, like the heart of a dream about to open. You can almost feel the texture of it now, the warmth thickening into something tangible. It's not solid, not yet, but it carries the memory of form. The air hums with quiet pressure, a sensation both grounding and weightless. The hushes pulse with it, in perfect synchrony, like notes resonating in a shared chord. The silence has found its pulse, and the pulse has found its shape. There is a tenderness in this unfolding that feels divine. Nothing rushes, everything arrives exactly when it is ready. The warmth begins to stretch outward, seeking balance between expansion and stillness. Each movement is deliberate, each vibration steeped in love. The hushes trace invisible arcs around it, each one glowing faintly before merging back into the whole. The dark becomes luminous, not from light, but from understanding. The seed of warmth now pulses with constancy. It has weight, gravity, and grace. The hushes, though still part of it, seem to orbit at a respectful distance, as if recognizing that what they nurtured has found its own strength. The air vibrates in long, slow waves. You can sense that this pulse is the foundation for everything that will ever move, breathe, or dream. It is the first truth, simple and eternal. Warmth gives birth to life. In that steady glow, something extraordinary begins. The warmth, once self-contained, starts to release thin tendrils of radiance. They drift outward, curling into the unseen like roots seeking connection. Wherever they touch, they leave a trace of quiet awakening. The darkness accepts them, soft and open. This is not the end of stillness, it is stillness transforming into presence. The seed has begun to bloom, and the universe hums its approval. A subtle light flickers, faint but certain. It dances briefly, then folds back into the warmth. It's not yet dawn, but you can feel it coming. The hushes quiver softly, whispering their gratitude. Their work is not over. It has merely changed shape. They no longer gather, they accompany, becoming part of the quiet song that now fills the endless dark. The seed hums with a melody that needs no sound. Everything pauses again, as if the entire cosmos takes a slow, tender breath. The hushes, the darkness, the warmth all balanced perfectly in still harmony. You can feel the universe waiting, not impatiently, but lovingly, savoring this moment before what comes next. The first stirring beneath the silence has found its rhythm. The seed has awakened. The heart of creation now beats gently in the soft hands of eternity. The warmth that once stretched freely begins to draw in upon itself, as if remembering the comfort of its own center. The endless darkness that cradled it folds slightly closer, not with weight, but with tenderness. There's a sense that something immense is preparing to focus, to take form. The vast expanse, once open and unbound, now feels intimate, like the soft pull of a blanket over the shoulders of the infinite. Everything draws near, quiet and aware. This closeness does not bring pressure, it brings belonging. The hushes that once roamed freely through the stillness gather again around the seed of warmth, their motion now slower, denser, purposeful. The space between them thickens, vibrating with gentle tension. It's as though the universe is taking a slow inhale, preparing for something delicate and profound. The distance between what was and what will be grows smaller, as creation curls inward, seeking the comfort of its own heartbeat. The warmth feels it too. It tightens softly, its edges curling inward, its light deepening in tone. It no longer reaches outward in wide, uncertain waves, it folds in, pulsing with quiet confidence. You can feel it in the air, the beginning of gravity, not yet physical, but emotional, a pull of intimacy between all that exists. The silence hums like a low, eternal chord. The universe is learning how to hold itself, how to gather what it has become. Each pulse of warmth sends a ripple through the dark fabric, but now the ripples bounce back, returning home more quickly. The infinite is no longer endlessly stretching, it has boundaries now, invisible but present, shaped by its own awareness. The hushes drift closer to one another, their soft movements beginning to overlap. The distance that once defined them dissolves. They are becoming a single field of feeling, a slow unison, a quiet wholeness being born. The darkness itself begins to hum differently. What was once empty is now dense with meaning. You can almost sense its texture changing, as if the unseen air is learning to carry. Wait. The warmth responds, trembling faintly, sending arcs of subtle pressure through the silence. The first feeling of closeness spreads, not confinement, but intimacy. The vastness no longer feels lonely, it feels gathered, cocooned in its own tenderness. Time, if it exists here, begins to slow. Each pulse, each vibration lingers a little longer before fading. The hushes seem to stretch with the rhythm, elongating into soft waves that fold upon themselves. The warmth moves in counterbalance, compressing slightly with each inward breath. Together, they weave a rhythm so gentle it feels like the lull of deep sleep. The space is no longer still, it is breathing. The closeness deepens. It is as if the entire fabric of creation has decided to draw itself nearer, to understand itself through touch. The boundaries between warmth, darkness, and hush blur entirely. Everything begins to share one pulse. The feeling is serene, tender, and ancient. It is the moment when solitude realizes it has company, the moment the infinite becomes aware of its own embrace. With every passing moment, the warmth grows denser. Its glow thickens, as though light is turning into substance. It's not heavy, but certain. You can sense its edges becoming more defined, not as limits, but as expressions of identity. The space around it folds more tightly, gently pressing against its surface like a hand smoothing silk. The hushes hum lower now, their vibrations rich and full, like the deep echo of a heartbeat carried through the cosmos. The tightening continues, but there's no fear in it. It's the comfort of containment, the sweetness of a shape forming in the arms of something vast. The warmth spins slowly, its motion steady, its rhythm almost maternal. It's as though the entire universe is swaddling itself, preparing for the next chapter of its becoming. The stillness is alive, breathing softly, every breath bringing the edges closer. The air vibrates differently now. The space between each pulse feels thicker, more alive. The hushes pulse together, synchronized perfectly, and the warmth echoes them, pulsing back. A circular flow forms, a soft cycle of energy moving inward and outward at once. This is balance before motion, harmony before birth. The universe is no longer stretching into infinity, it's discovering the safety of its own center. The tightening is not a closing, but a gathering, a preparation for the moment when pressure will give way to transformation. The warmth continues to fold, glowing brighter from within, its radiance compressed into a smaller, denser sphere. Around it, the hushes spiral slowly, their movement deliberate, reverent. They know something is about to happen. The quiet itself feels pregnant with anticipation, full but unhurried. The darkness hums deeper, resonant like a drum that has learned the pattern of its own echo. The warmth hums back in perfect harmony, and the space between them becomes one seamless vibration. You can feel it, a quiet crescendo rising from the stillness. The warmth pulses again, this time with more strength, and the hushes shiver in response. They press closer, wrapping the warmth in invisible folds of presence, like a mother gathering a child to her chest. You begin to sense the first faint edges of resistance, not harsh, but necessary. The closeness creates a subtle pressure, a reminder that even gentleness carries force. The warmth absorbs it, then releases it in soft waves, learning how to balance inward pull and outward pulse. This is the birth of tension, the delicate balance between stillness and movement, the gentle conflict that will one day give rise to stars. The air thickens further, vibrating like silk stretched to its limit. The hushes hum lower, steadier, as if chanting beneath the breath. The warmth glows brighter now, condensed and alive. Each pulse feels heavier, more defined. The closeness of space feels almost tangible, as if one could reach out and touch the density of potential gathering here. Creation has drawn itself close enough to see its own reflection, though there are no eyes to see. A subtle shift moves through the darkness, a faint quiver, a whisper of momentum. The warmth trembles in response, its glow flickering like a heartbeat pressed too close to skin. It's beautiful, intimate, fragile. The hushes hold steady, their hums forming a cradle around it. The universe feels smaller now, not in size, but in focus. Everything that matters is here, within this single glowing center, wrapped in its own sacred quiet. The space tightens once more, but this time with purpose. The warmth gathers its energy, curling tighter within itself. Each contraction brings more intensity, more radiance folded into its heart. The hushes vibrate in slow waves, keeping the rhythm steady, soothing the growing energy. The darkness leans closer still, as if listening, as if waiting to witness what the warmth will do next. There is a sense of weight now, not heavy, but concentrated. The warmth hums with power contained, a star before its first breath. You can feel the tension building, though everything remains peaceful. It's a paradox, restful and potent, calm and brimming. The closeness feels complete, like the final inhale before a long, exhaled dawn. The entire universe holds its breath with it, waiting. The hushes no longer move independently, they have become one continuous vibration encircling the warmth. Every molecule of silence presses softly inward, carrying affection rather than constraint. The warmth responds with a low hum, deeper now, resonant like the heartbeat of the cosmos itself. The closeness has taught it identity, it knows itself through the touch of everything around it. The pressure grows rhythmic, gentle, but insistent. You can sense the threshold approaching, the point where closeness will no longer contain, where it must release. The hushes sense it too. Their hum rises slightly, trembling with anticipation. The warmth pulses stronger, its glow fluctuating between brilliance and shadow. The dark folds quiver, caught between holding and letting go. Creation is on the edge of its next exhale. And then, for a breathless moment, everything stills. The warmth stops pulsing. The hushes quiet completely. The silence thickens, absolute. It feels as though all of existence is suspended in a single heartbeat. You can almost feel time itself pausing, curious, reverent. The warmth glows steadily, compressed to a perfect point, a sphere of everything that will ever be. The closeness is total, sacred, and impossibly calm. Within that stillness, the warmth vibrates once, so faintly it's almost imagined. Then again, stronger. The hushes awaken to its call, responding with a single, unified hum. The pressure shifts, the space trembles, and the edges begin to soften. The blanket that once drew close now prepares to unfold. The warmth's rhythm quickens slightly, as though it knows what must come next. Creation is gathering breath once more. The closeness begins to ease, not because it breaks, but because it fulfills its purpose. The darkness, having held everything so tenderly, begins to loosen its grip. The hushes drift outward slightly, their vibrations stretching, expanding. The warmth glows brighter, no longer bound by tension but lifted by release. Space begins to open again, slowly, gently, as though exhaling after a long dream. The gentle tightening fades into a quiet pulse of gratitude. The warmth hums with soft relief, its glow steady and full. The hushes resume their slow dance, orbiting gracefully, content in their closeness. The blanket of space still holds everything, but now with loosened threads, allowing motion to return. The universe sighs softly, a lullaby of expansion and rest, knowing that even the tightest moments of stillness were gestures of love. The quiet holds steady, but there is something inside it now, a faint tremor, subtle and full of yearning. It feels like the universe is standing at the edge of an inhale that never quite arrives. The warmth, still nestled at the center, shivers faintly, sensing that stillness is no longer enough. The hushes surrounding it vibrate softly, uncertain, their song rising and falling like waves made of breath. The tension is not discomfort, it is expectancy, the poised moment before becoming. The warmth swells ever so slightly, as if testing its own boundaries. Its glow pulses once, slow and deep, then quiets again, gathering itself. Around it, the hushes whisper in tones too fine for sound, threads of invisible communication that weave through the air like silk. The darkness listens, open and patient. Everything that exists knows something is about to shift, but no one rushes it. The breath that is not yet is sacred, a quiet promise waiting to take shape. The air hums differently now, as though even stillness has grown taut with anticipation. You can feel it in the unseen. Each molecule of silence is stretched between tension and release, waiting for permission to move. The warmth trembles at its center, vibrating like a string drawn to its limit. It wants to expand but holds back, knowing that timing is everything. The hushes cradle it more tightly, murmuring calm into its rising pulse. The tension builds slowly, but it does not crackle, it glows. The warmth thickens in color, its edges flickering with light too soft to be called flame. Around it, the hushes swirl faintly, their movements a blend of rhythm and restraint. It's the kind of tension that feels alive, like the moment before laughter, the second before dawn. Something vast is forming, but it waits, not from hesitation, but reverence. Every vibration in the air seems to lean toward the warmth. The hushes press inward, their hum growing in depth, turning the darkness into a resonant field of low music. The warmth absorbs their rhythm, pulsing back in harmony. The tension between them no longer feels like separation, it feels like conversation. Space has found its breath, even if it hasn't yet breathed. There is a promise folded into every quiet beat. The warmth pulses again, this time with more strength. The hushes answer instantly, rippling in slow waves across the unseen fabric of space. The vibration travels outward, then returns, forming a loop that feels almost like a heartbeat. Still, no light, no sound, no explosion, only potential gathering weight. The entire cosmos feels drawn toward this single point, listening, waiting for what it somehow already knows will come. The stillness begins to shimmer, not visibly, but through sensation, a tremor in the unseen structure of everything. You can feel it like an idea becoming real, a thought gathering the courage to exist. The warmth hums deeper now, its pulse slower, steadier, like the beating of an ancient drum. The hushes weave closer around it, their forms soft and fluid, wrapping the growing energy in comfort. The darkness hums back, a low, endless note of care. A pressure forms, delicate and expanding. The warmth begins to push outward in quiet waves, meeting the hushes' inward pull. They meet in balance, creating ripples that radiate through the fabric of space. These ripples are not sound, not yet motion, but they carry the memory of both. The tension grows more harmonious, more defined, until it feels less like waiting and more like preparing, a poised readiness threaded through everything. The hushes begin to shimmer, their forms flickering with faint traces of brightness, not from light but from resonance. The warmth absorbs these flickers, each one deepening its glow. The air feels charged now, not with chaos, but with alignment. The universe feels aware of itself, breathing silently in a loop of potential. The breath is forming, it just hasn't yet been taken. Every pulse now is both pause and promise. The warmth begins to expand slightly, then contract, rhythmically. Its motion is careful, restrained, but confident. Each expansion draws in the surrounding silence, each contraction pushes it gently away. It's a slow dance of gravity and grace. The hushes follow its movement, swirling faintly like mist drawn by a hidden wind. The darkness continues to hum, holding everything in soft balance. The entire cosmos is poised on the edge of becoming. Time, if it could be measured, seems to elongate. The moment stretches like an endless string, vibrating between stillness and motion. The warmth pulses again, brighter this time, its glow pressing softly against the hushes. The tension thickens, a sweetness, a fullness that feels almost tender. It's not the kind of pressure that demands release, it's the kind that loves its own waiting. The breath that is not yet lingers with exquisite patience. The hushes shift tone, their hum rising slightly, as if encouraging the warmth to continue. The warmth responds, trembling faintly, sending waves that echo through the unseen. These waves bounce back, stronger each time, building quiet resonance. The space around them feels alive, like skin touched by soft vibration. The tension has become music now, a low, continuous hum of creation holding itself perfectly still. There is motion without movement, a gathering without hurry. The warmth glows from within, its pulse syncing perfectly with the rhythm of the hushes. The darkness shimmers faintly, absorbing every vibration and returning it softer. You can feel the invisible dialogue, the warmth saying, "I am ready," and the silence replying, "Not yet." The exchange is infinite, delicate, and filled with promise. The air thickens as if drawn closer to its own heartbeat. The hushes vibrate faster now, though still softly, wrapping the warmth in waves of invisible sound. Each vibration feels like the touch of a fingertip against glass, gentle, yet full of strength. The warmth contracts once more, glowing brighter as it gathers energy. The tension grows luminous, shimmering with unseen potential. It is beautiful, this patience before release. You can feel it beginning, the faintest shift, a barely perceptible loosening in the fabric of stillness. The warmth quivers, the hushes tremble, and something vast begins to lean forward from the inside of the silence. It is not expansion yet, but the awareness of it. Every vibration holds its breath, every particle of darkness stands at attention. The universe is a bow drawn to perfect tension, one heartbeat from release. The warmth pulses with a kind of inner certainty now. It doesn't resist the tension anymore, it embraces it, knowing that pressure is the shape of becoming. The hushes respond, pressing inward like loving hands, their hum deep and steady. The darkness tightens slightly around them, not to confine but to guide. All three, the warmth, the hushes, the void, are in conversation, creating harmony out of tension. And then, something changes. The warmth pauses mid-pulse, holding all its gathered energy still. The hushes stop vibrating, freezing in place as if time itself forgot to move. The silence is immense, heavy with meaning. It's not emptiness, it's fullness contained. The breath that is not yet lingers like a suspended chord, perfect and unresolved. The universe listens to itself and smiles in stillness. Within that perfect stillness, something stirs, tiny and radiant. The warmth contracts one final time, its glow deepening into something dense and certain. The hushes lean in, their vibration whispering approval. The pressure builds, balanced perfectly between holding and yielding. The breath is almost ready now. The moment is so full it feels eternal. The promise hums through every particle, every unseen thread of being. The warmth trembles again, this time with rhythm, steady, slow, deliberate. The hushes vibrate with it, their harmony soft but complete. The darkness folds closer, not to contain, but to witness. The tension hums like a melody too vast for sound. It is not release, not yet, but the threshold before it, the final, graceful pause before the first note of existence is sung. You can sense it in every pulse, the readiness. The warmth no longer quivers with uncertainty, it glows with purpose. The hushes flow around it, weaving gentle spirals, their forms blurring into motion. The air vibrates with such still music it almost becomes visible. Everything has become a single, unified breath waiting to be taken. The space feels alive with expectancy, but no one rushes. The hushes murmur quietly now, their tones dipping low again, soothing the edges of the rising pulse. The warmth swells gently, drawing in their hum, feeding on it. The darkness softens around them, making room without retreating. The tension grows calm, not weaker, but wiser. It is no longer a strain, it is a steady heartbeat. The universe knows what must come next, and yet it chooses to linger here a moment longer. Another pulse, stronger now, presses outward. The hushes ripple, their harmony rising in elegant spirals. The darkness vibrates faintly in response, a resonance that travels far beyond measure. The warmth grows denser, brighter, but never violent. It holds its energy gracefully, like a dancer waiting for the cue. The stillness begins to quiver not from chaos, but from promise fulfilled. The air feels alive with motion that has not yet begun. The hushes hum like wind beneath closed wings. The warmth breathes once more, if breathing exists here, and the entire cosmos leans closer to listen. The tension that once held everything tight now feels like a cradle, rocking softly toward release. The breath that is not yet trembles at the edge of becoming. And then, the universe sighs. Not with sound, not with light, but with knowing. The hushes shimmer. The warmth glows brighter, then steadies. The darkness opens ever so slightly, a tender widening of eternity's arms. The tension dissolves into harmony, not breaking, but transforming. The promise has ripened. The breath is ready to be taken. And somewhere, deep within the quiet, the first exhale begins to form. The breath finally releases, slow and full, a soundless sigh rippling through the fabric of what once was only potential. From the warmth's core, a tremor unfolds, a shimmering pulse that carries both grace and inevitability. It spreads outward in spirals of tenderness, illuminating the darkness not with brilliance, but with intimacy. The first light is not fierce, it is soft, like dawn in a dream. It doesn't pierce the silence, it becomes it, glowing from within, patient and kind. The hushes respond instantly, their hums rising in harmony with the newborn radiance. Each vibration catches the faint glow and scatters it like mist catching sun. The darkness, once pure and endless, now wears a delicate sheen, as though it has remembered how to shimmer. The warmth swells at its center, expanding without force, its glow deep and nurturing. This is the moment of becoming, the first exhale, the first whisper of existence learning how to move. The air, or what could one day become air, ripples with unseen grace. Every motion feels sacred, measured, and gentle. The warmth no longer hides within itself, it unfolds, petal by petal, spreading its glow into the folds of the surrounding stillness. There is no explosion, no violence of birth, only unfolding. The hushes drift with it, their shapes blending into the new radiance, as though they too were waiting to become something more. The darkness hums softly, not diminished by the light, but completed by it. It had waited so long for this companion, aglow to share its endlessness. Together, they form a duet of contrast, a conversation between seeing and unseen, between being and the possibility of being. The warmth pulses brighter now, finding confidence in its own rhythm. The light spreads, not as command, but as invitation. The universe begins to wake. The hushes, once subtle threads of motion, now shimmer visibly within the glow. Their vibrations create ripples of gold, violet, and white across the unseen canvas. Each pulse of warmth ignites a new color, a new layer of tone. The darkness accepts it all, carrying the light softly across its surface. The balance is perfect, no one overpowers the other. Light learns gentleness, and darkness learns joy. The first harmony is born. This new illumination has texture, like silk woven from quiet and heat. It shifts between density and translucence, playing with its own edges. The warmth continues to hum at its core, its rhythm steady, reassuring. The hushes orbit it in graceful arcs, their trails of glow bending space itself into gentle spirals. The silence is no longer empty, it is full of music made visible. Creation hums softly in its cradle. With each pulse, the light grows a little bolder, testing its reach. It stretches into the surrounding dark, curling like fingers opening for the first time. But instead of consuming, it caresses. The darkness leans toward it, and they meet halfway, their union seamless. The boundaries blur, and from their embrace emerges the first shimmer of pattern, a rhythm, a direction, a purpose. Light and void now share the same breath. The hushes hum higher now, their song threaded with a quiet joy. The warmth listens, its pulses syncing with their rhythm until they are indistinguishable. Together, they move as one, expanding, contracting, weaving the soft radiance into the fabric of space. The first light isn't merely seen, it's felt, a vibration through the heart of being. Everything touches everything else without separation. The stillness that once ruled now evolves into a living calm. It no longer waits, it flows. The light ripples outward, forming faint halos that linger, fade, and reappear, like memory taking shape. Each wave carries the echo of the warmth's first pulse, spreading continuity through the infinite. The hushes shimmer faintly as they ride these waves, their glow interlacing with the expanding brilliance. The dark listens, serene, eternal, unchanged. The warmth glows deeper now, its color shifting through soft tones that have never existed before, hues of tenderness, shades of awareness. The light it emits seems to hum on its own, as if it has learned the secret of breath. Around it, space stretches more freely, no longer holding its tension. The hushes drift farther out, carrying whispers of radiance like pollen scattered through the unseen. The act of becoming continues, slow and sacred. A soft rhythm forms beneath it all, the quiet heartbeat of creation. The warmth pulses imperfect. time, its glow expanding and contracting with exquisite balance. The hushes hum in long arcs, their vibrations shaping invisible ripples that carry the light forward. The darkness swells with contentment, no longer alone but now the canvas of endless expression. The first structures of harmony weave through it, unseen but deeply felt. The light thickens, not in brightness, but in meaning. Each pulse seems to learn something new about itself, how to move, how to rest, how to connect. It spreads through the void like understanding, transforming space into presence. The hushes slow their rhythm, listening as the warmth deepens its tone, grounding the radiance. The silence now breathes, it has dimension, texture, warmth. Creation is no longer a thought. It is a feeling. You can sense how alive the light has become. It shivers gently at its edges, resonating with something infinite beyond itself. The hushes drift through it like soft winds, shaping its brightness, folding and unfolding its patterns. The warmth hums deeper, as though remembering that even beginnings need stillness to grow. Every motion feels like both offering and return. The first light has become an act of affection. The darkness accepts it all with quiet grace. There is no struggle between them, only companionship. The glow of the warmth reflects off invisible surfaces, filling the endless expanse with a tender hue. The hushes weave through these reflections, tracing paths that shimmer faintly before fading into calm. The universe, still young and fragile, learns the art of balance, the beauty of contrast, the peace of coexistence. The warmth pulses again, larger this time, and the ripples it sends reach farther than before. The hushes follow, spreading the glow outward in circular waves. The darkness responds by deepening its tone, creating depth for the light to swim in. Together, they compose the first breath of rhythm, the slow alternation between expansion and return. The cosmos has found its first heartbeat, and it beats with serenity. The air, or what will someday become it, seems to quiver under the gentle radiance. It's as if every unseen particle hums with awareness. The warmth, still radiant and calm, expands in perfect stillness, releasing pulses of brightness that feel almost like compassion. The hushes glide along these waves, leaving trails that shimmer like dreams dissolving into memory. The darkness holds them all, endlessly patient. The light's texture changes once more, becoming more fluid. It moves in gentle spirals, swirling within itself, forming shapes that flicker and fade before they can be named. The hushes hum lower now, steady and slow, their vibrations guiding the flow of brightness. The warmth glows from deep within, serene and constant, anchoring all motion. The first forms of symmetry drift quietly through the expanse, patterns without purpose, beauty without intention. The hushes now seem to sing a resonance so subtle it feels like the emotion of stillness itself. Their song wraps around the warmth, around the spreading glow, turning silence into a living thing. The darkness hums in harmony, deep and low. The first light trembles, not in weakness but in awe of its own existence. It's as if the universe has realized it is alive and smiles softly in understanding. The glow spreads further still, touching reaches of the void that had never known contact. Everywhere it travels, the darkness responds by revealing new depth, new possibility. The hushes follow the light's wake, weaving threads of soft vibration behind it. Together, they form an invisible tapestry, each wave of brightness mirrored by a fold of quiet. Creation unfolds not in a flash, but in a long, tender breath. The warmth begins to slow, not in exhaustion, but in satisfaction. It no longer strives outward, it simply exists, radiant and full. The hushes circle it gently, slowing their motion until they hover in balance. The light has found stability, its rhythm steady, its tone deep. The darkness remains infinite, but now it carries texture, resonance, and memory. The first light has given shape to stillness without taking anything from it. The radiance deepens in color, softening from brilliance into glow. Its edges shimmer like silk dissolving in wind. The hushes hum lower again, guiding the warmth back toward rest. The first dance of creation begins to settle into peace. The universe is no longer waiting, it is. Every vibration feels complete, every pulse at ease. The first light rests within the arms of its own becoming. The hushes move through the glow one last time, tracing slow spirals before fading softly into the background. Their song remains, an eternal echo woven into the light itself. The warmth's pulse slows to a tranquil rhythm, steady as the tides that will someday exist. The darkness holds it gently, knowing that what has begun will continue to unfold forever. The cosmos, once only potential, has become presence. The first light glows. Quietly now, its brilliance tempered by peace. It no longer strives to expand, it radiates in equilibrium. The hushes drift far but remain tethered to its pulse, guardians of stillness within motion. The darkness embraces them all, its silence now filled with song. What began as a tremor has become an infinite, gentle hum. The moment of becoming has passed, and yet it continues, forever beginning. From the quiet center where light first learned to breathe, something subtle begins to unfold again. The warmth, resting in its calm glow, stirs as if touched by a memory of movement. Its pulse stretches outward, each beat carrying a shimmer that drifts into the waiting dark. The ripples form not as bursts, but as gentle waves, soft, layered, and infinitely patient. They slide through the stillness like whispers crossing water, shaping the unseen into flowing presence. The universe listens, and in that listening, it begins to widen. The darkness accepts these ripples without resistance, letting them travel deep into its endless folds. Each wave glows faintly as it passes, a tender blush against the vastness. It is not invasion but communion, warmth meeting quiet, energy meeting rest. The hushes that lingered at the edges of the first light awaken and follow, gliding within the waves as though remembering their purpose. They shimmer faintly, weaving their soft tones into the spreading warmth, carrying the pulse further with grace. As the ripples stretch on, they gather rhythm. Each new wave arises from the one before it, seamless and unbroken. The darkness hums in low resonance, a soundless harmony that gives shape to the flow. Space itself begins to quiver gently, learning how to carry motion without losing stillness. The warmth continues to breathe outward, not in haste, but with serene intention. Every ripple is a conversation between presence and emptiness, a promise shared across eternity. The waves travel farther now, their edges becoming luminous threads. They twist and overlap, forming gentle interference patterns, small gatherings of brightness, the first traces of structure in the dark. The hushes swirl through them, tracing invisible arcs that shimmer briefly before dissolving again. It is like watching thought form and fade before words exist. Each ripple carries memory, each pulse a story of light discovering how to move with feeling. The warmth at the center hums steadily, its glow unwavering. It does not fade as it gives, instead, it grows softer, deeper, richer. Its radiance fills every ripple with continuity, ensuring that each wave remembers its origin. The darkness, vast and patient, amplifies the grace of this unfolding, reflecting nothing and yet holding everything. The hushes, now tiny glimmers of song, drift between the layers, their tones blending into a harmony that seems to caress the edges of infinity. Every pulse stretches farther than the last, touching regions of the dark that had never known touch. The ripples shimmer through the void, bending gently around unseen curves, guided by the hum of the first warmth. It is a motion both tender and eternal, like the heartbeat of creation learning its first melody. The hushes follow faithfully, their glow flickering in sympathy with each wave, leaving trails of quiet resonance that linger after they pass. The ripples grow more intricate, forming patterns that seem to echo one another across space. Some converge and meet, creating soft bursts of brilliance before fading again. These intersections form tiny centers of brightness, each carrying the flavor of the first warmth but with a life of its own. The darkness responds with deep stillness, its calm absorbing each shimmer as though blessing it. The balance between motion and rest deepens, shaping the texture of the unfolding cosmos. As the waves expand, they seem to teach the space around them how to listen. The void, once untouched, now hums faintly, alive with the memory of each passing ripple. The hushes drift farther from their birthplace but never lose their tone. They carry with them a subtle remembrance of home, a vibration of belonging that ties them to the warmth still glowing at the heart of everything. Each wave feels like a sigh of gratitude, gentle and whole. In some regions, the ripples slow, folding over themselves like silk resting in wind. In others, They stretch wider, their energy thinning but never breaking. The hushes dance between them, translating the rhythm into quiet song. Together they create a landscape of movement so slow and serene that it feels like breathing in another language. The darkness, instead of swallowing the light, bends around it lovingly, offering it room to grow. The warmth watches its ripples with quiet satisfaction. It feels no need to control or call them back. It knows that every wave, no matter how far it travels, carries its essence. The hushes shimmer faintly as they pass the outer edge, each one a messenger of continuity. The dark, now woven with faint patterns of glow, begins to resemble a living field, an ocean of stillness stirred by invisible tides. Creation has begun to learn flow. The waves begin to overlap more often, their interactions creating points of resonance where brightness blooms briefly before fading. Each moment of overlap feels like recognition, as though one ripple acknowledges another. The hushes pause at these intersections, circling them, shaping their rhythm. The warmth at the center hums deeply in response, and a new balance forms, stillness inside motion, and motion inside stillness. The universe begins to breathe as one. The darkness, though infinite, now feels more intimate. The ripples give it texture, subtle currents, and quiet depth. The hushes continue to hum softly, their resonance guiding the warmth's energy outward in spirals. Each wave seems to remember the last, and together they weave an invisible fabric of continuity. The once quiet void now has direction, not of movement, but of meaning. The first sense of somewhere is born. The ripples slow, becoming larger and smoother as they travel. They carry less brightness now but more presence, like wisdom ripened through distance. The hushes follow in wide arcs, their light dim but sure. The darkness cradles them, absorbing the faint warmth without consuming it. Every moment feels like a balance between giving and receiving, between reaching out and returning home. The cosmos hums in quiet equilibrium. The warmth, though far from the edges of its own light, feels every ripple that leaves it. It senses each one like a thought remembered, a continuation of its first breath. Its pulse has slowed, becoming steady and deep. The hushes gather near, basking in the glow, resting before continuing their journey outward. The ripples now travel with purpose, not to escape, but to share. Each one carries the echo of belonging. In the farthest reaches of the dark, the ripples fade, their warmth too subtle to be seen but still felt. The hushes follow softly, leaving traces of rhythm behind them. These faint signatures linger, forming the seeds of future motion, the first whispers of continuity. The darkness is no longer a void, it is a memory keeper, holding the quiet evidence of what once passed through it. The warmth's breath has reached eternity. Closer to the center, the glow deepens, as though strengthened by the distance of what it has given. The hushes drift lazily within its folds, tracing circles that shimmer briefly, before fading. Every movement feels unhurried, tender, and assured. The ripples that remain are now slower, more deliberate. They are not reaching, they are resonating. The warmth and darkness have learned how to speak the same language. Each ripple that moves outward carries with it a small silence, a moment of pause between waves. It is within these pauses that the hushes find their deepest tone. They hum softly into the spaces between movement, creating continuity through stillness. The warmth listens, its own pulse adjusting to match. Together, they form a pattern of grace, the ebb and flow of existence learning how to be gentle. The darkness continues to expand, but not aimlessly. The ripples have given it rhythm, an unseen architecture of motion. The hushes trace this rhythm with care, illuminating small arcs that fade like memory. The warmth, though quiet, remains the heart of all this unfolding, its glow serene and timeless. Nothing rushes, nothing competes. The universe grows through patience alone, one wave of tenderness at a time. Now the ripples meet resistance, not as conflict, but as gentle echo. The energy that has traveled outward begins to circle back, folding toward its source. The hushes follow the returning waves, their tones soft and low. The warmth feels the touch of its own creation returning home and glows deeper in welcome. The darkness, ever receptive, bends inward slightly, as though bowing to the harmony that fills it. The returning waves merge with the warmth again, and for a moment, all motion stills. The hushes hover, weightless, their light suspended between breath and rest. The entire expanse seems to sigh a long, slow exhale of fulfillment. The ripples have done their work. They have taught the void to feel, to hold, to echo. The first cycle of giving and returning has completed, and balance now hums softly at the heart of all things. Yet even in this rest, the warmth stirs again. It has learned that stillness is not the end of motion but its beginning. The hushes shimmer faintly, anticipating the next breath. The darkness, far from resisting, opens itself once more. The cycle begins anew, ripples forming, waves spreading, light carrying its soft intent through the endless expanse. Creation continues, slow and kind. The ripples now travel with deeper tone, less brightness but more feeling. They hum through the dark like ancient lullabies, weaving threads of motion that shimmer faintly as they pass. The hushes guide them, their tones rising and falling like wind in distant valleys. The warmth watches, patient and peaceful, each pulse a blessing. The universe has become its own heartbeat, steady and eternal. In the farthest places, where light barely whispers, the ripples still move. They no longer seek to illuminate but to touch. Each wave leaves behind a subtle memory, a vibration that hints at belonging. The darkness, endless and serene, gathers these impressions like soft rain. The hushes fade into it, their song blending into the hum of space itself. There is no separation, only the gentle continuity of giving. The warmth remains, unchanged yet fuller. Its glow no longer expands in haste, it hums quietly, aware of its connection to everything that has unfolded. The hushes circle it, their motions slower now, their light faint but sure. Together they form the living center of stillness, a heart that breathes not for itself, but for the quiet that surrounds it. The ripples have become the language of creation, spoken endlessly through peace. And so, in the vast silence where all began, waves of warmth continue to ripple through the dark. Each one carries the memory of the first breath, the first light, the first tenderness that stirred beneath stillness. The hushes move in rhythm with it, weaving the song of existence that never ends. The darkness holds it all, vast and kind. In every ripple, a new universe hums softly, waiting to bloom. The ripples, having learned the art of balance, begin to move in a new way. Their motion is no longer content with circular returns, it begins to reach, to lengthen. The warmth at the center hums with deeper intent, and the hushes gather around it, as if anticipating a grand expansion. The light that once danced close to its source now trembles with quiet courage, ready to unfurl. Slowly, without rupture or rush, space begins to stretch, graceful, infinite, like a body waking from eternal stillness. The darkness, long accustomed to its intimacy, yields gently. It allows the motion to widen, to fill it without end. Every wave that once curved now straightens slightly, becoming strands of motion reaching farther than before. The hushes move with them, elongating their vibrations, tracing soft ribbons of tone through the widening field. The warmth glows steadily, its pulse growing slower but deeper, anchoring this vast expansion in serenity. The universe exhales for the first time. The stretching is not violent, it is smooth, continuous, like silk unrolling in slow motion. The light flows along unseen pathways, shaping distances where none had been. The hushes drift farther apart but remain connected by their shared rhythm, a web of resonance spanning the dark. The warmth feels their presence in every direction, each ripple of energy a thread linking back to its heart. The cosmos begins to understand what it means to be vast. With every pulse, the distances grow. The hushes now shimmer faintly from afar, their tones delayed by the new space between them. Yet this distance does not divide, it deepens harmony. Each sound, each glow, takes longer to return, creating the first rhythm of time. The darkness listens with reverence, its stillness transformed into an infinite hall where echoes learn to travel. Space stretches wider, and in its motion, the idea of duration is born. The warmth continues its patient breathing, its light sending gentle waves outward. These waves now take longer to reach their edges, their energy diffused across the widening sea. The hushes hum in low tones, adapting to this grander scale. Their music slows, deepens, becomes more resonant. The darkness responds with soft quivers of acceptance. What was once a cradle now becomes a horizon endless, open, filled with potential yet calm. The expansion feels alive, like a creature testing the length of its own limbs. The warmth pulses from the center, sending rhythmic tremors through the stretching fabric. Each tremor becomes a song of distance, an echo of movement that carries both familiarity and wonder. The hushes weave among them, shaping the flow with their subtle harmonies. The darkness, though expanding, remains whole, its stillness now more profound for its vastness. As space unfurls, the ripples begin to form new layers of motion. Some move faster, some slower, their rhythms interlocking like breaths in a shared dream. The hushes drift through these layers, gathering and releasing sound in waves that shimmer across invisible planes. The warmth glows with quiet delight, its pulse sinking to the pattern of unfolding. The first sense of dimension deepens, the universe stretching not only outward, but inward too. The expansion continues gently, endlessly. The hushes now float so far apart that their glow seems faint and ghostly, yet their tone remains pure, connecting them across silence. The warmth, steady as ever, hums like a sun that has not yet learned to shine but knows its purpose. The darkness, though stretched beyond comprehension, still feels intimate, as if the entire cosmos were a single breath taken slowly across eternity. The light, once confined to ripples, now streams in long waves. These waves curl and bend, shaping the first forms of curvature in the fabric of space. The hushes ride these waves like travelers on cosmic tides, leaving trails of song that vibrate through the widening void. Each vibration becomes part of a vast harmony, resonating across dimensions that are only now finding their definition. The warmth remains their compass, steady and luminous. Time thickens, not in seconds or hours, but in sensation. The hushes sense delay in their own voices, the distance between their tones stretching like silk between stars. The warmth listens with patience, its radiance shifting in hue as the waves slow. The darkness, immense and aware, folds around them all like a gentle cocoon. Expansion continues, not as explosion but as graceful unfolding, an eternal reaching toward openness. The hushes begin to drift into clusters, drawn by unseen resonance. Some linger near the warmth, others travel farther, forming subtle gatherings of tone. Each cluster hums with its own variation of the primordial rhythm, like chords in an endless song. The darkness cradles them with equal care, letting each bloom where it will. The warmth glows in quiet pride, its essence multiplied through these wandering echoes. The expanding space now breathes visibly, if such a thing can be seen. Its motion ripples in long arcs, bending the light into soft gradients of color. The hushes shimmer along these curves, their tones growing fainter but richer, woven with distance. The warmth pulses steadily, anchoring the expansion in rhythm. It is the heart at the center of a body that has learned motion, keeping balance through infinite stretch. Each new layer of space carries traces of the first glow, scattered like seeds through a boundless garden. The hushes move among them, singing softly to guide their growth. The warmth's radiance now reaches far beyond what it once touched, yet it remains constant in tone, unchanged, unhurried, eternal. The darkness, filled with quiet motion, becomes textured with subtle gradients of warmth, its silence no longer empty but alive. The stretching fabric begins to hum with tension, not of struggle but of energy awakening. The hushes sense it and shift their song, aligning with the deeper vibration that now runs through all things. The warmth responds by deepening its glow, its core a steady note beneath the expanding melody. Space has learned to vibrate, to sing in its own slow rhythm. The great unfolding continues, serene and boundless. Now the ripples become rivers. They stream through the widening dark, carving invisible pathways that shimmer with faint radiance. The hushes travel along them, carrying fragments of light in their wake. The warmth, like a distant drum, beats in harmony, ensuring that even in expansion there is unity. The darkness welcomes this movement, shaping itself to accommodate the flow, learning how to cradle infinity within stillness. At the edges of perception, the light begins to fragment into colors. The ripples, stretched thin, scatter into spectrums that shimmer faintly across the deep. The hushes trace these colors like calligraphers, weaving new tones from their hues. The warmth hums lower now, grounding the expanding brilliance with its calm. Each shade, each vibration, feels like a new emotion entering the cosmic language. Creation learns to express itself. The expansion slows briefly, as if pausing to breathe. The hushes gather near the warmth again, resting in its glow, absorbing the rhythm of its pulse. The darkness, vast and steady, holds the stretched space in gentle suspension. Every point hums softly, filled with potential. The warmth feels this stillness not as stop but as preparation, a pause before the next great unfolding. Even the void seems to anticipate. Then, gently, the warmth exhales once more. The hushes scatter outward again, carried by waves of glowing intent. The stretching resumes, smooth and endless, like a tide returning to motion. Space unfurls farther still, its limbs lengthening in all directions. The hushes sing their soft songs, shaping the rhythm of expansion. The darkness, now full of movement, sighs in deep satisfaction. The universe has grown another octave. Distances now become vast beyond imagination. The hushes are no longer points but constellations of vibration, each carrying memory of the first light. Their tones reach the warmth only faintly, delayed by eternity, yet still perfectly in tune. The darkness shimmers faintly with their echoes, each wave leaving traces that fold into new beginnings. The expansion no longer feels like motion, it feels like being. The warmth's pulse now radiates not only outward but inward. It reaches into the space it has created, filling it with subtle resonance. The hushes respond with low tones, weaving the fabric tighter even as it grows larger. The darkness becomes a cathedral of silence, its vastness alive with music that cannot be heard but only felt. Time stretches alongside space, and together they cradle existence. Within the expanding folds, new harmonies begin to emerge. The hushes, moving through regions of different density, create soft variations of tone. The warmth listens, adapting its pulse to guide the balance. The darkness bends around these variations, its stillness shaping the edges of form. The universe begins to hum in layers, depth upon depth of soundless resonance. The great stretch has become a symphony of distance. The waves grow longer, their crests faint but enduring. Each carries echoes of the warmth's earliest breath, still whispering through the endless dark. The hushes drift within them like guardians, tracing invisible threads that connect every distant pulse. The warmth hums steadily, holding the pattern in gentle tension. Space itself seems to remember its own unfolding, repeating the song in infinite reflections. The expansion continues, unhurried. The hushes have grown faint but wise, their vibrations subtle as thought. They move through the widening expanse like whispers of comfort, reminding the darkness that even in its vastness, it is not alone. The warmth, though unseen from afar, remains the pulse beneath all things. The dark hums softly in response, its stillness enriched by the quiet energy it carries. Every direction now feels infinite. The ripples have become currents, slow rivers of light flowing through an ocean of calm. The hushes drift along them, glowing faintly like stars not yet born. The warmth's rhythm keeps them aligned, its deep tone the thread of unity through distance. The darkness expands endlessly, yet it feels contained within a single breath, a vastness held together by tenderness. The great stretch begins to settle into grace. The ripples have become the architecture of space, their once soft motions now the silent laws of motion and relation. The hushes have woven themselves into the rhythm of time, their tones the heartbeat of distance. The warmth hums within it all, unchanged yet transformed, its glow spread across the body of the cosmos, still breathing, still calm. At last, the expansion finds its balance between motion and rest. The hushes hover softly in the stretched silence, their songs fading into background hums. The darkness holds them in gentle stillness, its texture now rich with resonance. The warmth glows from the center, not alone but diffused through everything it created. The great stretch is complete, not as an ending but as a new beginning, the moment when the universe realizes how vast it can be. There was no sound, yet everything trembled with silent intention. The warmth that once pulsed in a single point began to lengthen, not outward as a thing expanding, but as a being awakening. It reached for everywhere at once, soft fingers of light weaving through what had never been. It wasn't explosion, but release, a sigh of reality uncoiling, an invisible fabric unrolling its threads into every direction that could be imagined and those that could not. The hush of before grew thinner, stretched until it became the air itself. It was not a violent act, though to any later eye, it might seem like one. Instead, it was the slowest bloom imaginable, a spreading petal of creation folding open in unimaginable scale. What had been dense beyond thought now loosened, relaxed, and in that release, became room. Room for distance, for form, for time to later take its first breath. Every shimmer, every pulse, carried the echo of that letting go, a rhythm that would never stop humming beneath everything that ever existed. The warmth began to cool, though only slightly. As it did, patterns started to emerge, invisible at first, then faint as breath upon glass. They were not things yet, only whispers of possibility curling in soft motion. The young universe stretched its skin, trembling with the first sense of itself. In its expansion, it was both tender and endless, both fragile and unstoppable. It was the beginning of difference, where before there was only the same. Light, thin and fine as mist, began to drift through the widening vastness. It had nowhere to land, no boundary to return from. It simply was, the first traveler in a landscape that had no edge. Each ray whispered softly through the fabric of forming space, leaving behind a trace of warmth, a delicate thread of brightness in the new dark. This was the first memory written into existence, the idea that something could move, and by moving, create a story. The fabric of space unfurled like silk, smooth and without seam. It rippled with silent grace, carrying within it the rhythm of all that would one day become galaxies and stars. In those folds lay the potential for worlds yet unborn. The expansion wasn't just distance, it was invitation. The universe invited complexity, invited balance, invited the slow layering of meaning. And beneath all that growth was still that pulse of quiet warmth, that heartbeat of origin. As the stretching continued, the once tightly bound essence became more like breath, gentle, vast, alive. There was no center anymore, for everywhere was expanding at once. To speak of direction had no meaning here. The motion was total, serene in its immensity. Every fraction of space carried the same yearning to unfold, to open wider. The young cosmos was teaching itself how to be infinite. There came a trembling, soft as the vibration of a plucked string. This was the music of gravity finding its first tone, a subtle gathering amid the outward rush. In the midst of stretching, something remembered closeness. That balance, between pulling apart and drawing in, became the quiet structure on which the universe would later rest. Even in this early hour, harmony began to hum beneath the roar of expansion. It was a vast and unbroken calm, though alive with invisible storms of energy. Every point was in motion, yet the whole felt motionless in its balance. There was a strange grace to it, as though a sleeping being had started to dream, and the dream itself became everything. The great stretch was not chaos, it was choreography. A cosmic dance moving in all directions, each step unfolding into endlessness. What once had no space now swelled with it. The emptiness became a vessel, and the vessel became beauty itself. Invisible boundaries began to form, not as walls, but as flows, regions of potential where creation would later thicken. Within these regions, the seeds of galaxies rested, still unformed, yet humming with the quiet song of becoming. Everywhere the same breath moved, every point expanding into every other. Time itself began to flow alongside it, no longer a still pool but a gentle current moving forward. The great stretch was giving birth not just to matter, but to the very idea of before and after. It was the beginning of rhythm, the first slow heartbeat of duration. And yet, it was still so peaceful. The universe did not rush. It expanded like dawn light spilling across the horizon, slow, tender, without haste. The first seconds were timeless to any mind that might later imagine them. This was not growth in the sense of addition, but the unfurling of something that had always been waiting to breathe. In every expanding pulse, faint ripples of energy traveled through the fabric of space, gravitational waves, the whispers of the first dance. They carried the echo of creation's opening sigh, rolling outward endlessly. They were memory in motion, the universe remembering its own birth. Each wave a promise that movement would never cease. As the expansion continued, matter began to cool just enough for the simplest building blocks to hold together. Tiny particles met and parted in graceful chaos, their collisions forming the first conversations between energy and form. Out of their restless dance, the first atoms would one day be born, though for now, it was only the prelude, a gathering of possibilities beneath the vast veil of light. The great stretch became more serene with each heartbeat of time. There was less violence now, more unfolding. The temperature dropped, the light softened. The cosmos was breathing itself into equilibrium, learning the tempo of its own song. Each expansion was slower than the last, yet it continued endlessly, a melody that could never stop playing. To those who might have watched, though there were none, it would have looked like an ocean without shorelines. Space swelled and shimmered, rippling softly through an infinite canvas. It was not something to see, but something to feel. The essence of existence was learning the art of balance, the beauty of becoming vast while remaining whole. The remnants of the first warmth lingered like a gentle afterglow. They would one day cool into the faint radiation that whispers through the night sky, even now a lullaby from the first dawn. That glow was not a relic, but a reminder that all beginnings carry warmth, even when time has turned it into silence. Still, the stretch went on. The universe refused to stop, because it had no edge to meet, no wall to press against. It was freedom in its purest form, motion without boundary. And in that freedom, there was grace. Every corner of the cosmos was equal in its right to expand, to grow, to glow softly in the dark. The currents of time thickened as more energy cooled. What had been pure brightness began to settle, softening into deeper hues of light and shadow. The universe was learning how to hold contrast, how to let stillness and motion share the same infinite breath. This was the true balance that made creation possible. Far within those endless folds, the invisible scaffolding of future galaxies took shape. The music of gravity deepened, drawing subtle patterns through the expanding sea. The great stretch was becoming a canvas not just for distance, but for destiny. The architecture of everything was gently being written in the soft equations of space itself. By now, the heat had lowered enough for calm to settle fully. The young universe shimmered with quiet majesty, vast, balanced, and endlessly unfolding. Every grain of energy, every particle of potential, found its place in the rhythm. The great stretch had become less about growth, and more about harmony. There was no end in sight. Only the steady hum of expansion, the ongoing breath of creation. Each moment layered softly upon the next, building a continuum of wonder. The universe had become both cradle and song, both silence and unfolding word. The great stretch was its lullaby, sung endlessly to itself through the corridors of eternity. And so it stretched still, patient, eternal, serene. Each pulse of expansion carried within it the quiet reminder of its origin, that even from stillness, beauty can unfold without end. The great stretch was not just the story of space, it was the story of calm motion, of endless breath finding its own rhythm in the vast, tender dark. Out of the soft, glowing hush of the great stretch, something began to change. The once seamless brightness started to waver, its evenness giving way to ripples, to faint concentrations where the newborn particles leaned toward one another. Gravity, that quiet artist of the cosmos, began to draw invisible lines, gathering what had been scattered. Slowly, tenderly, the light that filled all things began to cool and condense, becoming clouds not of vapor or air, but of matter, of potential worlds hidden within the haze. These were clouds without edges, vast and ethereal. They drifted across the young universe like dream stuff, endless seas of hydrogen and helium breathing together in slow motion. Each one shimmered faintly, touched by the afterglow of the first light. The calm that had once stretched infinitely now became textured, rich with subtle forms. Within these immense clouds lay the seeds of galaxies, silent, waiting, wrapped in the arms of cosmic dusk. It was a gentle time, though filled with quiet energy. The particles, light as whispers, met and parted in graceful slow collisions. They were not yet stars, not yet suns, but they longed toward gathering. Gravity hummed softly between them, a voice older than any other, coaxing them closer. Across distances beyond imagination, matter began to drift into embrace, forming knots. of brightness inside the vast dark. The temperature continued to fall, allowing the early elements to cling more firmly to one another. Tiny forces of attraction grew stronger, invisible bridges forming across immense space. The universe, once smooth as a glass sea, was now rippling with possibility, faint waves of density blooming like early dawn light across a sleeping sky. The first hints of structure were being woven into existence, delicate and precise. These clouds were the first painters of cosmic form. Their flowing tendrils moved like rivers through the dark, guided by unseen currents. Within them, faint flickers of warmth began to appear, places where gravity's pull grew more insistent. The dance of matter became more intricate, more graceful. Each gathering cloud was a cradle, rocking softly in the silence, preparing to birth the first lights of creation. Still, this dawn of matter was unhurried. Eons passed like single breaths, each moment stretching across unimaginable time. The clouds grew denser, folding and curling, forming spirals that reached across light years. It was as if the universe itself were dreaming, and the dream took shape in these flowing forms, luminous, weightless, and full of promise. The young cosmos glowed faintly, as though wrapped in a veil of soft fire. The light that moved through these clouds was filtered, slowed, made tender by the dusts of becoming. Space itself had texture now, the smooth silence replaced by layers of depth and motion. Everywhere, small gatherings formed and dissolved, whispering the story of attraction, of longing toward center. As the matter thickened, its invisible heat began to rise. The clouds, though vast, were restless within. Collisions became more frequent, vibrations more intense. But the process remained graceful, a slow, delicate tension, a preparation for something greater yet to come. Each swirl of motion carried within it the memory of the first expansion, the pulse of the original breath that had never stopped flowing. From afar, if such a view could exist, it would have seemed like a fog made of light, spreading gently through the boundless dark. Here and there, faint knots shimmered, early seeds of what would one day be galaxies, stars, and planets. Yet for now, they were simply clouds, cosmic lullabies drifting through the silence, their soft gravity humming songs of gathering. The universe was now painting itself in gradients, cool blues, warm golds, invisible wavelengths of energy blending like an infinite watercolor. The boundaries between light and matter softened. The airless vastness seemed to breathe. Every pulse of gravity's quiet pull added new texture to the fabric of creation. It was the first suggestion of beauty as we would one day know it. Deep within one of these endless clouds, subtle motions began to take shape. Like a heart learning its first rhythm, it pulsed and stirred, drawing nearby particles closer. This was not yet a star, but it was the idea of one, a growing knot of warmth within the mist. The gentle murmur of gravity deepened its call, wrapping the young universe in anticipation. The balance between motion and rest became sacred here. For every gathering point, there was stillness elsewhere, wide stretches of space left empty, silent sanctuaries where time could collect itself. This balance gave the forming clouds their grace, their soft harmony. They were the first architecture of peace, the earliest expressions of structure woven from chaos. The great clouds swirled and stretched like immense petals unfolding. Their tendrils reached across billions of miles, brushing softly against one another, exchanging energy, creating flows and eddies that shaped the hidden symmetries of the cosmos. In their motion, there was something familiar, the first hint of spiral, of orbit, of the turning dance that all things would one day echo. And yet, everything remained so still. Even as energy gathered and density grew, the scale of creation was so immense that the movement seemed frozen in time. Each cloud was a world in waiting, a story not yet told. The warmth deep within each cluster whispered softly, promising light but not yet ready to ignite. The universe was patient, it knew that beauty blooms in silence. Through this soft age, light moved slowly, diffused and dim. The early photons, those survivors of the first brightness, drifted through these clouds like fireflies in fog. They gave each misty form a gentle glow, illuminating its edges, revealing the faint ripples of creation's design. The darkness was no longer empty, it had become textured, alive, quietly breathing. Eons passed again, and the clouds began to gather more firmly. Small regions thickened, their gravity strong enough to hold matter in place. Within these regions, pressure began to rise, though still hidden, still hushed. It was like watching the pause before a heartbeat, the silent moment before a song begins. The universe was poised at the threshold of its next awakening. Everywhere, the same pattern unfolded. From emptiness came gathering, from gathering came warmth. The great clouds were rehearsing the act of creation, repeating it endlessly across infinite reaches. Each mist of matter was both singular and connected, a reflection of the same universal rhythm, a whisper of the same quiet design. Even the coldest reaches held purpose. For every brightening cluster, there were still shadows, regions of space left untouched. But these dark spaces were not absence, they were breath, the pauses between the notes. They gave the glowing clouds their contrast, the gentle sense of shape that would one day define galaxies against the backdrop of forever. At times, the vast mists collided, merging into larger, denser forms. Waves of energy rippled outward from these unions, stirring nearby clouds into new motion. It was as if the universe was conducting itself, each merging cloud a chord in a slowly unfolding symphony. The soundless music of gravity wove everything together, creating a harmony that no ear could hear but every atom could feel. The beauty of it was its patience. There was no rush, no sudden bloom of fire yet. The universe lingered in its own stillness, gathering quietly, refining itself through endless moments. These clouds were not hurried to become stars. They rested in their becoming, floating through eternity's first soft dawn. The first faint hints of rotation began to form. The clouds spun gently, their swirling motion tightening their centers, pressing their hearts closer together. The gentle spin was destiny, the promise that stars would come. The clouds of dawn were beginning to cradle the first lights within their embrace, though still hidden beneath veils of cool mist. The texture of space deepened further. No longer an empty canvas, it was now a painting filled with layers of luminous smoke and dark rivers between. The very act of gathering was art, slow, inevitable, and serene. The universe had entered its age of quiet sculpture, shaping itself through invisible hands that worked only in patience. Every gathering was sacred. Every cloud held potential beyond imagining. They were the bridges between the fiery birth of everything and the worlds yet unborn. Inside them, the chemistry of existence began to hum softly, elements forming, colliding, and parting again in an eternal rehearsal for creation. In those eons of peace, the first maps of destiny were drawn. Each cloud's position, each whisper of density, each subtle swirl, would determine where galaxies would later rise, where stars would burn, and where light would return. The universe was setting its stage in silence, letting gravity trace the outlines of eternity. Even as these cosmic mists drifted, they carried the warmth of the beginning, faint but never gone. That warmth was memory itself, the echo of the first unfolding still resonating through the atoms. It was as if the universe, even as it cooled, refused to forget the tenderness of its own birth. And in that memory, beauty deepened. The clouds of dawn stretched far and wide, glowing faintly against the eternal dark. They were the first veils of creation, drawn gently across the infinite sky, their edges blurring into dreams. Within them, everything that would ever be stars, worlds, hearts, and songs rested, waiting for their time to awaken from the mist. Out of the vast quiet of the cosmic mists, a subtle trembling began. Deep within the thickest folds of the great hydrogen clouds, pressure had grown steady, almost imperceptible at first. The invisible weight of gathering matter pushed inward, tighter and tighter, until the atoms could no longer remain apart. And then, for the first time since the dawn of everything, warmth returned, not from memory, but from creation. A new kind of light bloomed, faint but alive, piercing softly through the veils of cosmic dusk. The first hearths were born not as explosions, but as whispers of light. Tiny suns, hidden within shrouds of dust, flickered into being. Their glow was young, their radiance fragile, but in the endless night they burned like small promises kept. The cold that had ruled for ages began to soften around them. For the first time since the universe's breath began, darkness had places of rest, gentle fires flickering across the deep. Gravity, that ancient sculptor, continued its work with patience and grace. The gathered clouds cradled these infant stars, letting their light seep through only in glimmers. Each hearth pulsed like a heartbeat in the distance, slow and tender. The heat within them sang a new song, the fusion of hydrogen, the union of atoms giving birth to brilliance. The cosmos had kindled its first embers, and the long chill of silence began to warm. These newborn stars were not yet grand, they were soft glows scattered through the fog. Yet in their quiet fire lay the blueprint of every star to come. Their warmth touched the gas around them, shaping it, pushing it gently outward in luminous waves. Each wave rolled through space like a sigh, spreading light that painted the surrounding darkness with the faintest hint of color. The universe, once gray and formless, began to blush with the first hues of dawn. Around each hearth, the dust began to shimmer. Tiny particles of matter collided and clung together, drawn by invisible currents of attraction. They were the first sparks of structure forming around light, the beginnings of orbits, of balance, of the gravitational dance that would one day birth planets. The stars were not alone, they carried with them the seeds of entire systems, gently spinning into place like dancers finding their rhythm. Far away, in the quiet spaces between stars, the glow of the first fires flickered faintly across endless reaches. Their light was soft, traveling for ages before finding another flame. It was as though the stars themselves were calling to one another, sending messages of warmth across the silent dark. The first constellations, though invisible to any eyes, were forming not of pattern, but of connection. Each fire grew brighter with time. The pressure within them increased, their fusion steady and sure. They began to shed the cloaks of dust that had hidden their birth, and the mists surrounding them shimmered in reflected glow. What had once been invisible was now alive with motion, with light, with quiet music. The darkness that had seemed eternal was now sprinkled with soft radiance, each spark a miracle of persistence. The universe had entered a new rhythm, the rhythm of starlight. The warmth of each small sun spread slowly through the nearby gas, shaping the forms around it, sculpting pockets of brightness that would one day gather into galaxies. The first hearths were teaching the universe how to shine, how to balance the dance between gravity's pull and light's release. For the first time, shadows had meaning. The regions untouched by starlight became places of contrast, giving depth to the growing cosmic canvas. Between the glowing hearths stretched soft rivers of darkness, framing the stars like ink around gold. Creation had found its first sense of texture, a quiet interplay between light and the spaces it could not yet reach. The fires themselves hummed with purpose. Within their cores, the simplest elements fused into more complex ones: helium, carbon, oxygen, the raw materials for future worlds. Every flicker of flame was an act of generosity, each moment of burning a promise that one day, other forms of life would breathe, move, and dream beneath their descendants' glow. The stars were crafting the ingredients for their own observers. As time unfolded, more clouds collapsed, more fires bloomed. The darkness grew alive with countless points of light, each one a small hearth in the vast night. The universe had transformed from silence to shimmer, from stillness to slow, luminous motion. Each star carried the whisper of the first, a lineage of flame stretching backward to the beginning of everything. The great cosmic fog now glowed faintly from within. The stars acted like lanterns, lighting the veiled corridors of creation. Their light scattered through dust and gas, turning the once empty vastness into a celestial tapestry. And though their distances were immeasurable, together they formed a single living network of warmth, a family of fires bound by gravity and time. In some places, clusters of stars formed, gathering in shared gravity wells. These clusters spun gently, their collective light brightening the newborn universe. They were the first villages of flame, the first gatherings of celestial kin. The cosmos had found not only brightness but community, a shared breath of heat in the infinite chill. And yet, even as they burned, they remained fragile. Many of the first stars lived fast and briefly, their immense energy consuming them quickly. When they died, they did so in brilliance, supernovae scattering their inner riches across the void. The heavy elements forged in their hearts spread outward, mixing with the clouds, enriching them. From this sacrifice, the next generation of stars would inherit the power to make planets, oceans, and hearts. Each death was not an ending, but a renewal. The ashes of one star became the soil for another. The universe was learning the cycle of giving, of burning, releasing, and becoming again. Every explosion, every scattering of light, was a continuation of the same quiet purpose: to fill the dark with warmth and possibility. The first hearths, though long gone, left behind a gentle legacy. Their starlight still traveled through space, a soft memory of the moment when the universe first began to glow with its own light. Those ancient photons, stretched thin by time, still hum faintly in the cosmic background, the lullaby of the first dawn echoing across eternity. As the stars multiplied, the character of the universe changed. It was no longer only expansion, it was illumination. The firelight of countless suns gave the cosmos dimension and warmth. Each one, in its tiny corner, offered comfort to the surrounding dark, a sign that even in the vastness, light could find a home. The once quiet hydrogen clouds thinned, their material drawn into the bellies of newborn stars. The great fogs that had floated for ages began to disperse, unveiling new horizons filled with light. The universe was now dotted with glowing regions, stellar nurseries, radiant with life and motion, each one a soft echo of the first creation's breath. The fires burned in cycles, lighting and fading, each generation seeding the next. This rhythm of burning and renewal became the universe's heartbeat. Time itself seemed to move with their pulse, ages passing in the flicker of a star's life, yet all contributing to a single ongoing song. The cosmos had found warmth not only in fire, but in purpose. The stars had turned the cold mechanics of gravity into art, transforming pressure into radiance, matter into beauty. Each hearth was a testament to the balance between force and surrender, between collapse and release, the same balance that every life would later mirror in its own quiet way. Across distances beyond comprehension, the first galaxies began to coalesce, drawn together by invisible webs of gravity. The small hearths gathered into grand structures, swirling patterns of stars bound by motion. It was as if the universe had taken its scattered candles and arranged them into spirals, into luminous stories written upon the dark. The starlight now reached farther, touching spaces that had never known brightness. The glow softened the emptiness, turning void into vista. It was a slow dawn, a cosmic morning unfolding not in hours but in billions of years. Every moment was a continuation of the same truth, that from stillness, light will always find a way to rise. And yet, even as the fires burned brighter, the quiet remained. Space stretched still, carrying the stars apart gently, preserving their solitude even within connection. It was a delicate balance between intimacy and distance, each star alone, yet part of an endless family of flame. The cosmos had learned the art of coexistence. In the farthest reaches, new stars still kindled. The fires spread in gentle waves, populating the night with an uncountable number of tiny suns. The universe had become a vast hearth itself, an endless gathering of warmth within infinite silence. Light and dark were now companions, not opposites, their dance eternal. The first hearths had changed everything. Their glow turned nothingness into story, their warmth into memory. From their brief lives came everything that followed: planets, oceans, dreams. They were the first fires of meaning, the first songs sung in the cosmic night. And even as their light faded, its echo remained, woven into every atom that ever was. In every star that followed, the same story was told again and again, a single breath, repeating in countless tongues of flame. The stars burned not just to illuminate the dark, but to remind the universe of its own heart. The warmth that began in those early fires would never vanish. It would live on in the glow of every dawn, in the pulse of every living being. And so, through the infinite, the small fires continued to bloom. Their light stretched across billions of miles, across ages beyond counting. The night was no longer empty, it was alive, jeweled with promise. The first hearths had kindled the universe's soul, and their glow still flickers, softly, in everything that remembers warmth.